Don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting, yeah, for the haters, whoa.
Welcome back, everyone, to For The Haters. Today's episode is one I know so many listeners will connect with, navigating the heartbreak of miscarriage, the challenges of IVF, and the unique struggles of bringing life into the world during a global pandemic. Our guest, Shaheena, who first reached out back in 2019, is bravely sharing her story of multiple losses, fertility treatments, and becoming a mother to two beautiful children after years of uncertainty. Her journey through miscarriages, IVF, and two pregnancies during COVID is a reminder that grief and joy can exist side by side, and that no one should feel alone in their struggles. This conversation is all about breaking the silence around pregnancy loss, infertility, and the messy, beautiful reality of parenthood. Let's get into it. Shaheena, welcome to For The Haters. If you could just start out by introducing yourself and a little bit about you before, your fertility journey started.
Sure. So I'm Shaheena. So I guess where to start would be my husband and I met. We've been together now. It's 17 years. 17 years. So,
Wow.
but he's younger than me. So when we met, he was 17. Do not judge me, and I was 22. And so we met. We worked at Toys R Us together. Like, who doesn't meet their spouse at Toys R Us, right? So
RIP, right?
So we were together a long time before we got married because he's so much younger than me. So we didn't get married until we got engaged when we had been together 7 years, and we got married when we had been together 8 years. So I know that we'll get into the fertility stuff, but I was already kind of an old lady by then for pregnancy standards, right? So
Yeah, but things are changing nowadays, right? The 35 is the new 20. I said RIP. If I just realized there's probably people of all ages listening. There's no more Toys R Us, right?
people don't know what it is anymore. It's
Yeah.
depressing.
I
It
remember
removes
we
for
used to,
you to just buy toys. It's very
yeah.
Walmart and Target are not the same.
No. Wow. Yeah, Toys R Us bring back some really great memories. It's also really I feel like you don't often hear stories about people who get together that young, who wait to get engaged, get married. So being together for that long, I'm sure there's a story in itself of through, how do you make it through your early or late teens and then early ages. Leah and I got together when she was 21, and I'm no stranger to the struggles of dating through that time. And so what did really becoming a mom mean to you, right? Like before any challenges began, had you always envisioned that path for yourself?
I hadn't. When I met my husband, so before I met my husband, I was dating another guy, and that guy didn't want kids. And I honestly, looking back, couldn't picture myself having kids with that guy. So I didn't think I wanted kids. And then I know that sounds weird that I met my husband and he was 17 and I was 22. And I was like, oh yeah, let's have kids, right? But it wasn't an immediate, let's have kids today kind of thing. But I knew the longer I was with him, that I wanted to have kids with him, that I wanted to raise kids with him. So I know a lot of people going into an infertility journey, miscarriages, things like that, they always wanted to be moms. So I almost feel guilty that I didn't always feel that. But I didn't always want it until I met my husband and really thought this is somebody that I can raise children with.
Yeah. I think that's an important truth right there, right? Like it's okay to change your mind. You could go your entire life with saying that you don't want kids, but a singular person might change your mindset, or no one might change your mindset. It might just be your own your own thought processes that change. I think sometimes people get stuck in, oh, this is who I identified for so long. How can I change that? But it's really okay to change your mind of wanting kids. And it goes both ways. It's okay to change your mind of not wanting, children as well. But looking back, what were your expectations just around family building? Was infertility even a thought in your mind, or a possibility that could have?
No. I knew I was like I said, by the time we got married, I was 31, I think. And then we had never lived together. And so I was like, okay, let's take a year. My sister-in-law kind of did that. She was like, when she got married, she said, I'm going to take a year. And then my husband and I will start trying to have kids. And I was like, well, that seems smart. So I thought, okay, we're gonna wait a year and then we're gonna try and it's just gonna happen. I have on my brother, he has 4 kids. At the time, he only had 3 when we started trying. But I was like, okay, he had kids super easily. My husband's sister, I was gonna say my husband's wife, my husband's sister, had a daughter. They got pregnant the first month they tried. So I had no idea that we would struggle at all. I mean, I knew I was getting to where like they consider it geriatric and things like that, but I didn't really think anything of it. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, is only a year older than me. And like I said, they had 3 kids at the time. So I thought this is not going to be a big deal. They were married quite a long time before they had kids. And so I thought, yeah, this is going to be fine. This is going to be easy. I know what to do and you get pregnant.
Yeah. And and you might have just said, but how old were you when like the thought of starting to your family building?
Um, Probably my late, like mid to late 20s
Okay.
when I knew like, okay, we're going to end up together. We're probably going to end up getting married at some point.
Hmm.
And I didn't think it was going to be hard at all. I just thought you did what you did and you had kids.
Yeah. There's I do want to just shed a little bit of light on the irony of it's not even irony. I think it's like serendipitous. I think that's the word that I'm looking for. Of you reached out to be on For The Haters in 2019, right? And
Right.
but it was for the struggles of infertility that you were going through, and so like the things that have changed drastically over the years since you first reached out is there's just like I don't know, there's like a beautiful nature to it, right? Like there were so many struggles in that, but there's also like a completely different story that's being
Yeah.
told today than there would have been back then. And for those interested of why you weren't on it the first or second season, we we kind of were a little bit more particular about not taking on stories that overlapped. I don't do that anymore. I think every story, like, not that I didn't think there was validity in people's stories. I think that we were just trying to get as many topics as we could, and now the floor is kind of open for every single person. But I'm just really happy that you reached back out and that we get to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's really because in 2019, I had just had my 2 back-to-back losses in
Mhm.
2018. And so I hadn't even hit IVF or, kids pregnancies during COVID, things like that. I didn't even know that was in my journey at that point.
Yeah, which is just like crazy to think about, right? Like the person that you were in 2019 and even the person I was in 2019 is not the people that, like, we're talking now as
Yeah.
completely different people, right? Like, if we would have put ourselves in the room with them, I would have felt like I was in a room, with a stranger pretty much. But can you, speaking of back in 2019 and 2018, can you share a little bit about what those experiences were like and um, just how those miscarriages came like about in your life
Sure.
timeline?
So we started trying in late 2017, I guess. We got married in 2016, waited a year, started trying in late 2017. And we tried for a couple months, didn't think anything of it. And then the beginning of January of 2018, we found out we were pregnant, like the first couple days of 2018. And, um, I'm sure you know this even just from like the IVF aspect of even like having an embryo. You start planning, like, okay, what's going to
Mhm.
happen? What is this kid going to be like? What are they going to look like? And so we just kind of like were super excited. We shared, and I think you talked about this on maybe Carmen Chaos or maybe this podcast, I don't know, but you talked about it's like I immediately told my family. My
Mhm.
mom and I are super close. I talk to my mom every day. I could not hide that from my mom for any period of time. So we told my mom, my husband's, my parents, my husband's parents pretty much immediately. And didn't really think anything of it. And then I had my ultrasound at the end of January. And we went in and we actually invited both of our moms, thinking this is going to be a great, joyous experience. And so my husband's mom, my mother in law, was in the room. My mom was late, so she wasn't in the room, but they did the ultrasound. And so I had both of my losses in 2018 were blighted ovums. So sperm, fertilizes the egg, I guess, but nothing forms. You have a sac, but it's an empty sac. And so I didn't know that was a thing at all. So we went in and she didn't see anything in the sonographer or whatever they're called didn't see anything in the sac, but they're not really allowed to tell you anything. And so she didn't really say anything, but I could tell that it wasn't the hey, here's your baby, the things you see on TV that are supposed to happen, they weren't happening. And I hate this, the OBGYN's office that I went to so much. After my second loss, I stopped going there, but they put you back in the waiting room. So instead of going to like a room and being by yourself and kind of dealing with it, you go right back in the waiting room with everybody having good news and everything like that. And I remember they took us into the room and they explained that it was a blighted ovum. And I have a group text with my husband, his sisters, and my best friend. And whenever she said it was a blighted ovum, I texted them. And if I had not texted it in the text, I got in the car and I couldn't tell you what she told me whatsoever. It was just like shock. And so I couldn't remember the name of it, but I was glad that I texted it so I could look it up. And so for me, I was offered the options of passing it naturally, taking the medicine to pass it, or doing a DNC. And I didn't really know what to do. I'm kind of an indecisive person to begin with. So I kind of asked my husband what he thought. And he said, I don't see any good coming out of you, like watching that sac come out of your body. I don't think that's mentally going to be great for you. And so we opted for a DNC. I did. But he helped me, go down that path. So that was my first loss. And my doctor, the lady I saw was actually the nurse practitioner. I never actually made it to the doctor because I didn't have anything to go to the doctor for. So they did the DNC. And then for me, it took about, I think, like 6 weeks for my HCG levels to get back to 0. And then they pretty much told us once it got back to 0, we could try again. So we tried again. And then I found out I was pregnant again in July and went back. And the nurse practitioner had pretty much assured me she had been a nurse practitioner for like, I don't know, 40 years, and she's never had anybody have 2 back-to-back blighted ovums. So I went back in thinking, okay, this is it, that we're going to see a baby. It doesn't happen twice. It's not going to happen again. And it was literally the same exact situation. And so another blighted ovum, they put me back in the waiting room. And this time I knew what it was. And so I'm like sobbing in the waiting room, waiting for them to take me back to the room. And ultimately with that one, we did a DNC again. So that was kind of my losses before we got to the infertility piece of it.
Because that's what happened to Kayla, right? Like that's the story, like which like during Kayla's story, and I'll leave this in during Kayla's story, who was on the first or third season, that was the first time I had heard about this even being a possibility. So it's really interesting to hear just there are like other commonalities between that. Just some quick facts around that. A blighted ovum is responsible for 1 in 2 miscarriages in the first trimester. It's estimated to affect about 1 in every 10 pregnancies overall. So 10% of all known pregnancies. Most people who experience a blighted ovum can go on to have a healthy pregnancy. However, having one slightly increases the chance of experiencing it again. So the risk of having a second blighted ovum is about 5 to 10% compared to the general risk of 1 to 2% for recurrent early miscarriages. So some statistics around that. But like even the frustrating part for me when I hear stories like this is like, why aren't we educated around these possibilities, right? Because our expectations, like you said, is we see everyone around us going through miscarriages, or not, sorry, around, we see everyone around us going through pregnancies with ease. That's all that's being told to us. That's all that's being taught to us growing up. And so like, why aren't miscarriages more just spoken about just because of how common they actually are? And, you decided to be vocal about this. You decided to be open and can you share just why you made that choice?
Yeah. So I knew a few people who had miscarriages. I didn't really know anybody who had that type of miscarriage. And it's like, I had to look up whether what I had was a miscarriage or not, because I was like, there's not a baby. Am I really having a miscarriage? And am I allowed to mourn this as though it's a miscarriage? It's like, I didn't even know how to react, because everybody I knew that had had miscarriages had had later miscarriages where, they passed the sac and they saw a baby, or they knew, like, they had seen the heartbeat and then there wasn't a heartbeat. And so, but even then, I only knew maybe like 3 people that had talked to me about having a miscarriage. And right before I had my first one, kind of a friend of my best friend, I know her, but we weren't necessarily close to each other. I knew she had had a miscarriage, an early miscarriage. It wasn't a blighted ovum, but it was another early miscarriage. And so when I was going through my first one, I was, talking to my best friend, and he said, "Hey, my friend said that you can talk to her, if you have any questions." And so that right there for me made me not feel alone. It was like, okay, somebody else knows what I'm going through, and I don't have to kind of sweep it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen. And so, um, that meant a lot to me, her doing that for me. And so once it happened, I told my husband, I said, I'm going to post on my Facebook, because if I can do that for one person, what she did for me, then that's, not that it's worth it, because didn't want to have a miscarriage, but what I went through won't feel like it's in vain. Right. And so,
Yeah.
I posted on my Facebook and kind of shared what we were going through. And you would be shocked at how many friends and family members commented, and they were like, yeah, I've had a miscarriage too. I'm here if you need me. And it was, I was in shock at how many had had a miscarriage, because I knew some of them had, but I didn't know how many had. And so I felt really kind of embraced by those people that were like, hey, I've been through this too. But it's one of those things that people don't talk about. And I understand, I think on Kayla's episode, she said this too. It's like, you don't want to have to go back and explain to people like, hey, I was pregnant and now I'm not. And so you kind of keep it internally. But it's like, for me, that baby meant something to me. And
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about it. And I didn't want them to be forgotten. And again, I'm still struggling with like, was it a baby? Because there was nothing in the sac. But it's like, I didn't want to forget about that pregnancy. And so I didn't feel like I needed to hide it, but I also wanted to be there for other people if they were going through it and felt like they were alone.
Yeah. I can assure you that there is absolutely no shock or surprise to me the amount of people that reached out to you, because and people listening are that probably comes to a shock, but like that's what this platform was built off of, right? Like I know what it's like to feel alone in the experiences, and what speaking about that experience does by just finding a community of other people that have gone through it. And so there's just so much power, right? Like how and the strength that it took you to even be vulnerable, but it will always come back as something worth it. Like being vulnerable about that situation probably saved you, right? In many ways.
Yeah.
Secondarily, I when you keep referring to like this not knowing if it's a child to be able to mourn, I think about people who are infertile, that are like that cannot get pregnant, and their validity to be able to mourn children too, right? Like they're mourning what they were going to have. They were mourning, like I think it's very valid to have feelings of like mourning an actual child, whether it was an embryo, like a viable embryo, or not. That's just kind of
Thank you.
what's going on in my my mind. You know, you spoke to the good that came from that, but like what were some of those hardest parts of grieving that loss that we had like so many people just hesitate to talk about?
Every person we had to tell, it was awful. It was just the worst. Like telling our, parents, telling our brothers, sisters, cousin, whoever, we had just told. It was, I can still see it. Like I can still
Mhm.
picture it. Just having to, especially after the second one, because we didn't think it was going to happen again. And so, you get your hopes up and you're like, okay, this is going to be it. And just having to say, no, it happened again. It was like, it was awful. And it was just, and then I think the other thing for me was talking about it. It's like, I want to talk about it and I want to share it. But at some point, you feel like the people around you maybe don't want to hear it anymore. And nobody told me that. Nobody said, hey, you need to stop talking about this. And so I'm sure it's a me thing, not a them thing. But you start feeling like, everybody, I think this is with any loss, right? You feel like everybody else moves on, their life goes on. but it's still there for you. Losing a family member, losing, a baby, whatever. It was, especially those couple of years where we were trying and just not having any luck. It's all I thought about. And so it was like, you guys are all moving on with your life. You don't care about it. If I talk about it, you're probably like rolling your eyes that I'm still talking about it. But for me, it was at the forefront of my entire life.
Mm-hmm. How do you protect yourself in that, right? Like, how do you take care of yourself in managing your mental health? How do you find a way to navigate, like, not completely going into, like, a super dark space for forever?
It was hard, but and this can be my answer to probably like even 5 other things that we talk about, but I joined a blighted ovum support group on Facebook. And just kind of people that are going through the exact same thing as me that I could talk to, watch their journeys. And I ended up doing that with IVF, and I ended up doing that when I ended up my second child was not an IVF baby, she was a surprise. And I had 2 under 2 unintentionally, and I joined a 2 under 2 support group. But like those support groups of people that just are going through the same thing, that was everything. And then I think I'm really lucky that because I've seen people post on those groups, oh, my husband is, being a jerk. He doesn't understand. I was really lucky that my husband felt the same way I did in a lot of ways because he was, a lot of people were, why is your husband upset? He wasn't pregnant. Well, he lost the
Yeah.
child or the idea of a child as well. And so he never made me feel like I couldn't talk to him about it. And he, would open up when I needed him to and things like that, even though I know it's not his favorite thing to be open and talk about that kind of stuff. And I really admire, like, I've watched him after that, and we've had friends who've gone through IVF or miscarriages, and he's actually like gone to lunch with a couple guys who've said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I think that that's worth mentioning because on the guy side of things, I think it's really hard to be open and talk about that.
Yeah.
I think most of them tend to kind of internalize it, but knowing that he was vocal with it about me, didn't shy away from it, and then even like supporting other people was really helpful to me.
I feel like he probably found strength in what you did though, right? Like he wouldn't have done that without you. He wouldn't have done that without seeing you and the power that you gave to other people in your story and helping other people get through theirs, just sharing your experiences. I think that says a lot for you as a person. It obviously says a lot for the both of you as a couple. But it makes me honestly feel really emotional thinking that he was just able to do that because I feel a lot of sympathy and empathy for men in general, which probably I don't say a lot because I men aren't very relevant in my I'm just kidding. I'm best friends, but I'm lucky to have emotionally aware best friends, like men around me, and they just deserve that, right? Like they deserve better. He deserves to have a voice in this journey as well, and his own experiences. So it makes me feel like hope almost that there's people like him being able to help other people as like other men specifically as well.
And he did tell me, like what you just said. He said to me one time, he said, the reason I feel like I can talk about this is because you've never backed down on talking about it. And so now I feel like it's okay to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just incredibly beautiful. If I think about it too much, I'll start crying, so
I have tissues over here because I knew I would probably cry.
Um, so next is obviously going not obvious, but you guys decided to start your infertility or fertility journey. Um, how does that start? How does, where do you go? Where do you even start to have the questions? Where do you start to find answers?
So the OBGYN that I saw, now, and I know I complained about the office and said I hated that place. And the lady the nurse practitioner is not the most like warm and fuzzy person, but I will say she started crying with us the second time because she had never had a patient have two. And
Mhm.
she recommended that I see a fertility doctor for recurrent miscarriages. And so usually a lot of doctors won't recommend that until you've had three. So I really, really appreciate her recommending that after two. And
Mhm.
they also, when I did the DNC for the second one, they did genetically test the sac. So they didn't do it on the first one, I think, because they just expected that it wouldn't happen again. But they did
Yeah.
test the second one, and there was nothing genetically wrong with the sac. So I know sometimes it can be that there weren't enough chromosomes, things like that. And that explains it. But for us, that wasn't it. And so they did a miscarriage blood panel at that doctors, the OBGYN's office, but she also recommended that we see, I guess he's a reproductive endocrinologist, I think, the fertility doctor. And so she said, go to this guy, go get tested. Happened to be in the same building as them. So I didn't even really think about, do I, call different doctor's offices? I just rolled with it. I'm pretty indecisive, like I said, anyway. So it was like, you're telling me where to go? That's great, because I don't have to think about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to him, and this was just probably a month or two after the second loss. And they do all kinds of testing. They, and I have a whole list of it, and I didn't jot it down, but it was, all kinds of testing to make sure that your chromosomes, I think there's something called like chromosome swapping. And so even though you have, 23 that you give and your spouse gives the 23, it could be that you only gave this much of this one and this much of this one, and it's not balanced correctly. So they did testing on that and a number of other things, basically, and said, we can't explain what's going on with you. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to have kids. We don't really know what happened. Go try for, a year and come back and see us if nothing happens. And so I think at that point I was like 33. And so we didn't think we would struggle to get pregnant. We had gotten pregnant twice. It wasn't the getting pregnant that was the problem. It was the staying pregnant. So we thought, okay, this is going to be easy. This is going to be fine. And we tried for another year and nothing happened. And I think you and Kayla talked about this. It's not fun. People think trying to get pregnant is fun, and it should be fun. It's like at a year, you're not even enjoying it anymore. Like, you're like, this is not fun. It's very planned and like, get it over with. Like, I don't really want to do this, and it's frustrating. And so at that point, we went through a year, didn't get pregnant in that year. So for us, this is where my story, I think, differs a little bit from Kayla. For us, the doctor recommended IUI, which, looking back, I don't really know why, because we had tried for a year, and if I could have been pregnant,
Essentially the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like there's no difference in it.
No. So we did 3 IUIs, and mine wasn't an insurance thing because my insurance didn't cover infertility at all. So mine wasn't an insurance thing. It was just, hey, this is cheaper. Try this route, and we're going to see what happens. And we didn't have any luck from that. So that brought us to IVF at that point.
Yeah. Did you stay with the same clinic? Like, did you find like that staying with one clinic was the route that you took? You enjoyed the clinic that you were at?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing with my clinic is during IUIs, you don't really get to talk to the doctor. The nurses do all of the IUI process. And I know you explained this on the last one, but I don't know how far apart they'll air. And so IUI, for like people that don't know, it's basically what some people consider the turkey baster method. Your husband gives a sperm sample, and they what am I trying to say? They insert it into you. I was trying to go the IVF route, and my mind drew it so blank. And then you just hope that you get pregnant from that. And so, I totally lost my train of thought. I don't remember what you asked me. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You were just speaking to the difference of like IUI is just the insemination. It's like,
yeah, you asked me about the clinic. So that was the only thing, is like we didn't really see the doctor very much during that. And I could have gone to my regular OBGYN for the IUI for cheaper, but at that point I'm like, they're not really experts in it, and these doctors are supposed to be. So I stuck with them for the IUI. And then the doctor that was actually my doctor, which is the one that my OBGYN had recommended, he's like the head of that office. So he hires all the other doctors. And so I kind of felt some comfort in going to the head doctor there. So we didn't switch clinics during it. We just decided to kind of stick around and stay.
And so how long into, did you go right out of that third IUI cycle? Did you wait a couple months before you did your first retrieval?
No, we went right into it. And I think when we went, and you probably remember this more freshly than I do, I think when we went for like our consultation, they do like your baseline to see how many, not eggs, but how many, I guess,
Follicles.
There you go, that you have. And I didn't have a whole lot. And I'm overweight. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not overweight. I'm overweight. And so my doctor kind of told me, it's like, your ovaries are hard to get to. So this is the only thing I didn't like about this doctor, and this almost made me leave this doctor. He was like, you can have bariatric surgery and then come back and do it, or you can just do it and see what happens. And I was like, okay, I'm heavy, but I'm not, I didn't think I was like bariatric surgery heavy.
Yeah.
So I kind of left that, and I told you I was on the IVF Facebook groups, and I posted, and people were like, "No, I weigh more than what you said you weigh. Absolutely not. Like, don't do that." So then we went ahead and went straight into it. But I always had that worry of like, what if they can't get to my ovary, which ended up being part of our problem too.
Mhm.
But that was the only thing that made me kind of go, I don't know how I feel about this clinic.
Yeah. So what does that retrieval look like for you? What are, how many eggs did you get? How many turned into embryos?
So, he told me kind of along the way that I wasn't responding like super great. Um, so what my doctor said, and especially they were the whole time. So for people that haven't been through IVF, you go in like every couple of days for monitoring, and you take, you do the medication that's supposed to make you be able to release or produce all the eggs at once, and that you go in like almost every 2 or 3 days to. And I know you know this, so I'm saying this for the benefit of
I
people
love
who
it.
don't.
Yeah, I love it.
But, so every time I would go in, I had this one ovary that wasn't like, couldn't be seen. And I didn't know this at the time, and I guess this is really bad that I don't know my own, like, anatomy or whatever, but I didn't know that your ovaries kinda, like, float. They're not, like, stationary, so they just float in there, and they can kinda move and do this and that and the other. And so he told me at the time, he said, "I'm having a really hard time seeing this one ovary. If we can't get to it, what I think I might do is go use the needle and go through your abdomen to get it."
Hmm.
And so I kind of appreciated that he was kind of thinking outside the box for me. And we ended up going in for my retrieval. And he said, "Listen, I've really been thinking about this. I've really, really considered it." And he's like, "You maybe have 3 or 4 like eggs that are ready, mature eggs." And he's like, "I just don't think that the risk of going through your abdomen and hitting something is worth the return of what you're going to see if we do this retrieval." So he said, "If I can't get to the ovary, what we'll do is we'll end up converting it to an IUI cycle, and we'll just refund you the rest of the money for that, and we'll do another IVF cycle later." So
Hmm.
I know that that sounds kind of depressing and whatever, but I actually really appreciated that he wasn't just kind of, "Whatever, I don't really care about you. This is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna do it, so I don't really care what happens." He was kind of thinking about it the whole time and how it could work. So they ended up only getting 3 eggs. And the crazy thing is they didn't even get them from the ovary that they could see the whole time. They got them from the ovary they couldn't see, and then they couldn't see the other one.
Oh,
So, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna push all over your body. We're gonna do whatever we have to do to make these like float around and do whatever." And so they got 3, and only 2 of them were mature.
hmm.
Um, and so I know you know this, and I know Kayla said this on her episode. They tell you to be prepared to lose half of them at every step.
Yeah.
So only having 2 mature, I went into it thinking we're not going to end up with any viable embryos.
Hmm.
So they I don't know if your clinic did this, but my clinic did ICSI or ICSI, and so they inject the sperm straight into the egg rather than kind of letting it, float around and go to the
I don't
egg.
even know if I ever met. I don't know if yeah.
So mine does that just as like normal protocol. Some will
Hmm.
do it as if you have sperm issues, which my husband didn't have any issues with his sperm, but they did it kind of just as a protocol, and so both of them fertilized, and then so most clinics will only go to day 5 or day 6 with embryos. Thank God my clinic was a day 7 embryo clinic because neither one of my embryos fertilized or became blasts until day 7. And so some clinics will discard them at day 5 or day 6.
Yeah.
If they're not
I
blasted,
didn't even know that. Was
yeah, on your
like I didn't know.
how to
Yeah.
blast. And so my clinic went to day 7. And so on day 7, they called me and said both of them had become blasts, but your chances at like a 5 and a 6 are pretty much the same thing. A day 7 kind of reduces your chances.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. And then we did the PGT testing because I had the 2 prior losses.
Yeah.
So we tested them genetically. And it was really weird. The day that I got the call that told me like if they were normal or not, I had a feeling on the way to work. I thought they're going to call me today and they're going to tell me both of them are not viable and we're just going to have to start over. And I'm not kidding you. My phone rang on the way to work right after I had that thought. And I was like, okay, this is what they're going to tell me. And they told me both of them were normal. And so I cried because I couldn't believe that the
Of
2
course.
made it the whole way through.
Yeah.
When they tell you you're going to lose half of them at every step. So there's no reason we should have had 2 at the end of it. Like I thought we were going to
With
end up with
only
2.
3 eggs. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I just want to preface, like, make sure, like, I've never felt so uneducated about my own body until I went
Right.
through IVF. And like obviously Leah's in healthcare, so she understood just the body. I didn't even know that the ovaries floated like that. So it's news to me now.
Most of what I learned, honestly, I learned from like the IVF groups and people just saying
Yeah.
stuff. You would just like kind of learn and pick it up along the way.
I also, when I woke up from my retrieval, they went through my abdomen, and I didn't even know that was possible before I went into that retrieval. So I like woke up and they were like, "Hey, we had to go through your abdomen to get to your one." I was like, "Okay." I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm like looking down to see if I'm like sliced open or not. But what an incredible like so to make it right, like,
Mhm.
and I'm guessing, do they freeze them or do they do fresh
Yeah.
transfer?
So because of the PGT testing, they have to freeze those.
Okay.
You can't do a frozen transfer because they have to, I mean, sorry, a fresh
Yeah,
transfer
fresh transfer,
because they
yeah.
have to send them for the testing.
Right, right,
And
right.
so, I asked when they sent them for testing, I said, "Do I wait until I find out if they came back normal to start the medication for the transfer,
Mhm.
or do I start it now?" And they were like, "No, you can start it now. We'll just hope that it's, good news, and then we'll go from there." And so I don't want to like lead into any of your other questions here, but I was preparing for a transfer in 2020,
Mhm.
and it was April 2020, and then COVID hit. And so I got the call that, hey, we have to put everything on hold because the Society for Assisted Reproduction or whatever it's called is making us put everything on hold. You need to stop your medication.
Oh my gosh. What a roller coaster,
Oh
right?
yeah, it was crazy.
Like,
It was
there's
like, this cannot be happening at this point, you know?
like, how many roadblocks it takes to get just where you're where you're trying to go. So how long did you have to wait for before they let you
I
do a
ended up doing
transfer?
my transfer in June. So I guess it was
Okay.
2 months. I think I started the medication probably late May. I don't remember, but I think it was maybe a month and a half that it was completely on hold. And then they called back and said, "Okay, we're starting to, do them again. You're at the top of our list because you were on hold from the previous time."
Mhm.
But it was, oh my gosh, when they called me and it was at the time they said, "We don't know the effects of COVID on pregnancy, so we can't really like in good conscience continue."
Mhm.
But it was like I knew it was for the best at the time because they didn't know. And in my head, I can rationalize that, but I had to go to my boss's office and say, "I need to go home. Like I need to just process this and cry." And the weird thing is with my miscarriages, I didn't do that. I was very much I need to go back to work. I need to get my mind off of it kind of person.
Mhm.
Um, that one just hit me in a way that it felt like why me, which I know sounds dumb because again, I go back to I didn't struggle with infertility for years and years and years like some people do. It was, the couple of miscarriages and then a year of infertility. So you feel guilty thinking those things,
Yep.
but I very much was like, what else is going to happen at this point to us?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, right? Because people find excuses for validity of their own experiences because someone else has it worse, which I always say it's a seesaw effect because, on one side it's good to know that like it's not good that things could be worse, but like it helps just get you through the day
Mhm.
of thinking that way. But on the other side, like everyone's story is just so valid. Like if you doesn't matter if someone has it worse because like if it causes pain, it causes hardship, it causes any type of emotion, like there's just so much validity in it. So I don't think it's silly at all that that's why I know people that have to take off a year of work just to go through IVF because of everything that like comes along with it, and there's no difference to that your experiences as someone else's.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a defense mechanism for me or I'm also like a people pleaser. So I don't know if I don't want like anybody to think, oh, she thinks she had it harder than them. Or so I
Yeah.
like very much like tried to always say like, I know that I'm not, going through stuff like, I'm not having a stillborn or I didn't have a,
Hmm.
20-week, loss or even an 8 or even like a 10 or 12-week loss. And so I always like kind of tried to preface it by saying that.
Hmm.
But, I want people to know listening, like, don't be like me because it is valid and it is a
Yeah.
legitimate thing, but I just felt like I had to be that way. oh, I didn't struggle with infertility for years. I didn't, have late term miscarriages. And so you feel like you're like doing something wrong by feeling a certain way about those.
I can relate to it, like, to that so much as well, because obviously with our situation, like, Leah and I weren't infertile. We didn't experience infertility. We lacked the natural parts of what we needed to produce a child. And so it's very hard for me, like, to align myself with my friends that went through infertility or IVF, because, like, our situation was different. The medical processes are the same, the up and down roller coasters are the same, but I can very much so relate of trying, like, not putting myself in the same box as other people, because I don't want to infiltrate a place that I don't know if I belong in, right? Like, I don't know if I, like, belong in an infertility world. I don't know if I belong in, like, the IVF community.
But you do. I mean, you're like you're saying to me, your
Yeah.
struggle is it's a different situation, but it's still valid. It's still,
Yeah.
something you had to
Right.
go through.
For sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I can relate. It's just a wild world that we live in. Or our brains are just so powerful to convince us of so many different things. But so June comes along, you get the approval to get ready, start taking those shots again, taking medicine for that transfer. And so you're going for a transfer, and what is, wait that 10 days.
Yeah.
Did you take at-home tests?
So I know you're not supposed to. They tell you not to.
Yeah.
But the day that we were going to find out, so like the 9 days after, whatever, when my clinic makes you come in for the blood test, it was the day before my husband's birthday. And my husband's birthday also fell on Father's Day. And I was like, I can't
Not
find out the day before Father's Day if it's negative, and that would kill me because it was the day before his birthday and Father's Day. And so
Yeah.
I did take an at-home test, and it was positive. But and I don't think I even told you this in the email. The day before I was supposed to go in for the ultrasound, and keep in mind, this is all still in COVID, so my husband wasn't allowed to go with me to
Mhm.
anything. Okay, he was able to be there for the transfer, which I'm actually surprised about looking back, because they really weren't letting anybody be anywhere for anything. But he was there for the transfer. But the day before my ultrasound, I this is TMI. I had to go, like, I sat on the toilet and I felt like I needed to go to the restroom. And then I felt this instant like pop of relief, but I knew I hadn't gone to the restroom.
Yeah.
And so I stood up and I looked, and this is graphic, y'all. So
Mm.
this was a trigger warning, but I there was a blood clot the size of the palm of my hand and I'm not exaggerating, in the toilet. And I made my husband come in there and I was like, I need you to, this is gross, but I need you to pick this up and I need you to see if there's like a baby in there because I can't mentally deal with this. Like, I need you to. He's like, I don't see anything. And so I called my clinic and they said, well, we're going to push your ultrasound up to like 8 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. Come in and we'll take a look. And
Mhm.
I just had convinced myself it was over, that I lost another pregnancy. It was done. That was my baby in the toilet. Like, and I did not know how to handle it. And so my husband was like, listen, I know I can't go in the clinic with you, but I'm going to drive there and I'm going to sit in the parking lot and I'll be there. And
Mhm.
so they did my ultrasound. And you have to remember, I've never seen uh what is it? Like a what is the pole and whatever. I forget what they call it. There were two things that they were looking for. And I've never seen that because all my ultrasounds were empty sacs. And so she's like, yeah, we see everything we're supposed to see. And I lost it
Yeah.
because I thought I had lost the baby the day before. And I've never gotten even that far in a pregnancy, which sounds crazy because it's only like 6 weeks in, but I had never gotten to where you saw a baby
Mm.
or the pole and whatever they're supposed to see. And so a yolk sac and a something pole. And so I lost it. And so I got to the car and I just like hugged my husband and was like crying. And I was like, there's a baby. And of course, then he said he got in the car and called his sister and she couldn't even understand what he was saying because he was like uncontrollably
Yeah.
crying.
Um, it, it, I can't even imagine, like, COVID was such a scary time. Was there, like, what were the, like, was COVID relevant and top of mind? I know from a physical standpoint of you guys not being able to do things together, but from a COVID standpoint, was there a lot more stress and fear? Because that's the height of COVID. Like June.
It was legitimately the height of it. So for me, I I'm like I'm at work right now, right? I'm sitting in the office right now. I go to work all the time. And I that was the one time I said to my boss, I just found out I'm pregnant. You know how hard it's been for me to get here. I was open with my boss about my struggles too. I said, I'm not coming into the office. I'm not going to risk this pregnancy at this point. And so I worked from home for the entirety of my pregnancy. And yeah, like my husband, he could only go, if I remember correctly, I think he could only go to the anatomy scan. I think that was the only appointment he was allowed to be at. And so it's just, I didn't get all those. And again, this is going to sound very whiny because I realized that at the end of the day, I got like the hope and the wish, right? I got the baby. I have my 2 daughters now. And so I know I got what some people are longing for. And so I don't want to take that for granted. But at the time, it felt very like I'm not getting to experience this the way I wished I was experiencing it, right? Because my husband didn't get to be there, for everything. So thankfully, he did get to be there for the anatomy scan and everything. But it just felt very, again, isolating because I couldn't, none of my friends and family really got to see me with the pregnant belly because I wasn't going anywhere. And so I felt like I missed a big chunk of that experience.
Yeah. And I mean, that's so much strength it takes to, advocate for yourself, right? Like, you don't know what could have happened if you didn't make that decision to work from home or push to work from home. Um, so even having that opportunity, like what a great place to work that gave you that ability to make that decision, which was what was best for your family. But I honestly couldn't imagine that, those emotions. I feel without COVID that it wasn't personal or an experience like that, and that would have just been, an added layer. When you reached out, you spoke about doing like a drive-by baby shower. What were some of those like biggest challenges?
Yeah, I mean, so it's still looking back, it's like because I had her like in the height of COVID and had that drive-through baby shower, and then I had my other daughter so close together with her. Nobody threw, and no, I mean, I guess I could have thrown my own. I know you guys said that, and so I could have thrown my own, but nobody threw a second shower, and so it's like I never really got like the whole baby shower experience. And so again, I don't want to act like I didn't get the end goal, which is the baby. But it was just like it felt like I was missing out on what people normally and typically get. So we had the baby shower, we stood in the driveway and our friends and family would like kind of drive up. A few people would get out and take pictures with us. But I didn't really get that whole like interaction with a group of my friends and family, just getting to sit there and, enjoy the baby shower and things like that. And so I remember standing in the kitchen before we went outside crying because I said, I never thought we would get this far. Like it felt like it was never going to happen. It felt like through all the struggles we went through that I was never going to get to a baby shower. So I'm grateful for where I went. But yeah, it was hard in that sense. And then like even having my older daughter, it was only my husband that was allowed to be at the hospital and he couldn't leave. He couldn't go to McDonald's to grab a bite to eat. He literally had to stay at the hospital the whole time. And so I felt like we missed out on that kind of like experience of getting to walk out and say, my husband getting to say, hey, she's here, and everybody coming back and everything like that. We didn't have that. And even when I had my second daughter, it was 2022. So I had my older one in 2021, my younger one in 2022. It was right before they lifted everything. And so we were allowed to have my husband plus a different person, like one other person, and we could swap that person out the days we were there. But my mom wasn't even supposed to get to be in there. So I had both of my kids were breech. So I had C-sections for both. And they said my mom could come, but she couldn't be in the room. And we were like, hey, can she please be in the room? And then they talked to the anesthesiologist and he was like, okay. So my mom actually got to be there for the second one.
Yeah.
But just my husband and my mom.
Yeah.
And then the next day, that night my mom went home and the next day my mother-in-law came. But we still didn't get that whole, everybody getting to come visit, which probably looking back is fine because you get to like enjoy it just yourselves, right?
Yeah, but it's still valid, right? Like
it
you
just felt like we must have. And yeah. And then the crazy thing was like probably a week or two after I had my second daughter, they lifted everything and it was normal protocol. So I was like, couldn't you have waited 2 more weeks to be born?
So the entire process was just like had this like over like cloud that just followed you around that like was restricting every single person like around you, missing every single key event that someone gets to experience throughout that pregnancy. And it's like, you guys did fight to get here, and IVF isn't easy. Infertility is not easy emotionally, mentally, physically, all the things. And it just, continued throughout your
Yeah.
firsts of everything. People coming over and enjoying those first moments together. And um does that bring you and your husband closer, or do you have conversations? Like, how do you find ways to stay connected and just really support each other through those restrictions?
Yeah, I mean, we did decide that we were okay with our families coming to our house, and so we did
Mhm.
like with our first daughter, we made them go get the pertussis shot, and I think everybody had at least part of the COVID vaccine by the time we had her. I think because I think I got mine like right after she was born, and so we had to decide like, are we comfortable with these
Mhm.
people coming over? And so we decided we were because for us it was already hard to have her by ourselves at the hospital and not have anybody there. We didn't wanna miss out on people being able to get to come see her and visit her, but even then,
Yeah.
I was still very cautious about it. It still, like, kinda just made me nervous, and it was like, "Okay, wear a mask," things like that, and so it felt weird to make people that are coming to see my kid wear a mask, but they did for a while, and so
Mhm.
then we kinda let up on it a little bit and felt a little bit more comfortable, and honestly, by the time my second daughter was born, even though all the protocol was still there, I feel like things had loosened up like a whole I was going back to work when I
Yeah.
was pregnant with her. So that one we were a lot more chill than we were with the first one. But yeah, it was I mean, you just kind of had to I was really lucky. My husband, when we had our first daughter, he had a job where he worked from home the entire time. And so he got to be there my entire maternity leave. And so that really helped because I think if I had been home by myself and it was like COVID and I really didn't feel like I could go anywhere, that would have felt super isolating. But he was there and my parents would come help us a lot. And so
Mhm.
I think we were lucky in that sense.
Yeah, so the pipeline from IVF to a second natural surprise baby is very strong. Uh, but now that both your daughters are here, how do you like reflect back? How do you look at everything that you went through to kind of to get to this point?
No, I mean, I look at it, and even my mom and I talk about it at the time. It's like, especially both of them to me are miracles, right? I mean, like to know what it takes to have a baby and how difficult it is and how hard of a time we had having the first one. The second one seems like a miracle to me because we weren't even trying. She was a surprise.
Mhm.
And so that's a shock to me. Like, as long as I tried and tried and tried to have a baby, to have a surprise baby is crazy to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're both miracles in their own ways, but yeah, I sit and I think about it. And, of course they're toddlers and some days you're like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? But, I think I always have that part of me that's like, I can't imagine the alternative, which is not having
But
crazy wild toddlers running around my house, right? So
yeah,
it's how you remember what it felt like.
yeah. Do you feel like the experience, like the IVF and miscarriage experience, has shaped you in a way, like in your parenthood?
Yeah, I think even though I get frustrated and annoyed and whatever, kids are kids and they're going to be kids, I
Mhm.
think there's that part of me that is like, hey, do you remember what it was like when you didn't have them and how hard it was to get to have them and to get to this place? And so they probably get away with a little more than they should because I'm a sucker for them because of that. But yeah, I think it makes you appreciate a little bit more. Not that I wouldn't have appreciated them, but I think it completely changed. I'm not a super patient person at all. And
Yeah.
you have to be patient with IVF, right? Because you don't have a choice. It's like
Yeah.
wait, 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 wait. But I think it gives me a little more patience with them because I know how hard it was to have them and, that they're little miracles, so
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone that might be going through or experiencing infertility or might have just experienced a form of pregnancy loss?
I think, just do whatever is best for you. Not ev for not not everybody wants to talk about it, and so if that's not what you wanna do, do whatever is best for you. If you're a person who needs to, sit at home and cry for a week, then do that because only you can decide what the right method is for you, and I feel like if I had just kinda tried to do what people wanted me to do, that maybe I wouldn't have healed from it in the way. And not that you ever heal from it, right? Because it's always there. Like I still
Right.
know today that I would have a 7-year-old if I hadn't had my first loss, and an almost 7-year-old if I hadn't had my second loss. And it's not lost on me that I couldn't have had both of them because I got pregnant with the one when I should have still been pregnant with the other.
Yeah.
And so, but you have to, whatever method is like the right method for you, whether that's the support groups or talking to someone or not talking about it because you just don't want to deal with the world, and maybe you want to go to the gym, and maybe whatever that is, you have to do it because it's easy to just sit there and not do anything and get depressed and upset about it. And it's easy to feel that way. It was, the first Mother's Day after my losses, it was the only time I told you I'm a people pleaser. It was the only time I looked at my husband and I said, I can't go to your mom's house. I can't. I cannot go to a celebration right now because I just don't feel like celebrating anything. This is really hard for me because I should be pregnant and this should be a Mother's Day that I'm getting to celebrate. And so you have to just kind of, like you said earlier, advocate for yourself and do whatever makes sense for you. And for me, that was talking to other people and talking about my losses and about my journey.
What do you hope listeners take away from this episode?
That they're not, you're gonna make me cry now, that they're not alone because I think all of those things, the pregnancy loss, the infertility, it's all very isolating. And even though there are other people going through it, you feel like it's just you.
Mhm.
And so I think like just that you're not alone. Like I don't care if somebody messages me and wants to ask me questions and talk to me about it. Literally, I never left the Blighted Ovum Facebook group, and then we're done with our IVF journey. We ended up a couple of, I guess a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we transferred our second embryo, but it ended in a chemical pregnancy.
Mm.
And so we're kind of done, just decided like we're happy with the 2 we have and that's it. Although now we're kind of like, oh, should we have had another one? But I stayed in the Blighted Ovum group. I stayed in the IVF groups. I think a lot of people leave once they have their baby because they feel like I don't need to be in here anymore. But I felt like if nobody's in there anymore that has seen the positive side of it,
Mm.
who's there to tell the people like this is possible, this is going to happen? And so like, I guess the whole thing is you're not alone, and
Yeah.
whatever you have to do to feel like you're not alone, you should do.
Where can people find you if they're looking to reach out or reach out?
So on Instagram, my handle is I am Shaheena, and Shaheena is Shaheena. I know you'll probably have it spelled out in the episode.
Got a description.
Your name, right? So, and then I'm also in the For The Haters Facebook group, so I'm glad to answer any questions there as well.
Shout out to the For The Haters Facebook group. I keep forgetting to add that to the end of episodes, so you're hired. You can And my final question to you is, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I think even like, I don't know, because then I think thinking I wasn't going to have kids and stuff, I don't know that I even would have expected this, but maybe if I could tell myself, the one that was going through the losses and in the middle of all this, I think it's that, you know, you're going to be okay. Whether I ended up with the end goal or not, I was going to be okay. Maybe wouldn't have been happy, right? But I would have been okay. And so I think just like it felt like my world was ending during that. And I think just to look at that girl and say, it's going to be okay. Your marriage is going to survive this. Like you're going to be okay and you're going to grow from this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and I told you earlier, kind of like it doesn't make it worth it to me because if I had a choice, I wouldn't have had miscarriages, right, or anything like that. But I think just the losses, the IVF, like all of it shaped who I am as a person. And maybe I was meant to go through it so that I could help one other person or something like that, and
Yeah.
not feel alone. But yeah, of course, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. But if you're going through it, like you're gonna get through it.
Yeah. Well, Sheena, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story with us today. Your openness about miscarriage, IVF, and navigating pregnancy during COVID is a reminder that no one should feel alone in their journey to parenthood. To anyone listening, if you're facing loss, infertility, or uncertainty, please know there's hope and there's a community that understands. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on For the Haters. Thanks for listening to For The Haters. Don't forget to connect with us on socials, follow, like, and share to help more people find this community. And remember, they're not alone. And if you haven't yet, join our Facebook group. We'd love to have you there. The more we grow, the more lives we can impact.
What's your name and share your story? We'll be waiting.